Good evening. Welcome to the Glens County Council meeting for Tuesday, August 10th, 2021. We'll start out with the Pledge of Allegiance, and it'll be Mr. Clark who leads with the
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So tonight we're going to do things a little bit different. We were supposed to have a presentation. Unfortunately, our technology that we have here at City Hall did not quite work, and I apologize to you folks for that. We have Nora from Davie Resource Group and also Lori Grockenbeck, also from Davie Resource Group. They're the ones that did the tree inventory, and a lot of you have copies of that. So it's going to be not what we expected as far as a PowerPoint, but at least we'll let you kind of go through your survey and your results you found and give us some ideas. I know that I've read it and there's a lot to it and we got a lot of work to do. So I'll let you go ahead and do your presentation.
Is where I am, where I'm facing
That's good.
acceptable?
Is that good right there, Pete?
Awesome. Definitely.
Testing.
All right. Yes, thank you, Mayor Hall. As you mentioned, my name is Mariah. I was the site manager for the Glens Falls Public Tree Inventory. Lori Grockenbeck is the project manager, so we were both involved in this one on the ground and sort of in the management stages. So, yes, we don't have the presentation to show you, but fortunately, if you have that management plan in your hands, all of the drafts that I was going to be showing tonight are in that plan. I will do my best to find them in the plan and reference what page number as they come up, so that those of you who have the plan printed out can follow along. I wanted to start out just by sort of discussing what the purpose of a tree inventory is, then talk a little bit about the findings in the inventory data we collected, cover the basics of risk assessment, which was an important component of the inventory, talk very, very briefly about the benefits provided by urban trees, and finally wrap up, again, very briefly, talking to a little bit about the management side of this inventory and the subsequent plan. So on a really basic level, a tree inventory aims to identify the species, the location, and some basic sort of demographic information about the public trees in municipalities. All of that information is collected together and put in a single database that's then searchable, so it has more utility for finding specific features, specific trees. Another goal is to reduce the risk associated with trees. Trees can fail in whole or in part for a lot of different reasons, and having an idea of what trees may be likely to fail and in what kind of time frame helps figure out, what the management priorities need to be. Knowing what you have, again, can help you figure out for future planting plans. If you have, for example, a lot of single species or a single genus in your inventory, you may want to try to avoid planting those in the future to diversify what you've got. It also helps streamline operations. Again, just knowing what you have, what it needs, and where it's located saves a lot of time. You don't have to necessarily wait for a nearby homeowner to call in a complaint before you can go in and service a tree. And finally, it should allow you to estimate the future needs of your urban forestry program. So having an idea of what you have, what condition it's in, allows you to estimate budgets, staffing, equipment needs, all of that sort of thing. So going on now to a little bit about the inventory findings. Obviously, the inventory area was the city of Glens Falls, specifically the public rights of way along the streets within the city, as well as a few selected public parks. Some of the notable ones were Crandall Park and Rec Center, East Field, Glens Falls City Park right next door, and the Haviland's Cove Park and Beach. But there's a whole list of them, which again is in that management plan for anybody who's curious and wants to know a little bit more. In total, we collected 8,310 sites during the inventory. And this brings me to my first graph, which is located on page 4 of that printed management report, I believe. And that just shows the breakdown of the different sites collected during the inventory. So most of the sites were trees. This is pretty self-explanatory. A tree is there. About 4,300 trees were along the streets, and further 1,300 or so were located in parks. That accounted for about 68% of the sites we collected. Then you've got some planting sites. These are locations where there's not currently a tree, but one could potentially be planted if desired. We collected nearly 2,500 planting sites, accounting for about 30% of the inventory sites. And finally, stump sites. This is, again, self-explanatory, where a tree once existed but has since been removed, the stump has been left. There were only a little bit over 200 of those in total, about 3% of the site's inventory. Moving on, I suspect this is the next set of graphs actually in the report, but I'll double check for you. Yes, I believe that is page 6. Looking at the species and genus breakdown, first of just the streets. So we considered streets and parks separately here because the species and genus composition of those populations is a little bit different. And you'll notice in these graphs that we have the bars for the different species or different genera. And we also have a straight line running across those graphs on the species graph at 10% and on the genus graph at 20%. And those are corresponding to something called the 10-20 rule. This is sort of a guideline that was created to get an idea of whether or not you have an overabundance of a species or genus within a given tree population. And it was created in response to epidemics like the Dutch elm disease, which swept through the United States, a non-native disease or pest, and had just catastrophic effects on urban canopies. The idea being that if you have an overabundance of a particular type of tree, that provides a more suitable habitat for insects and disease pests, particularly invasive ones, and also basically you have monoculture, which is at significant risk of being wiped out in the event of an invasive pest or disease outbreak. So Glens Falls does have a bit of an overabundance of a couple of different species among the street trees, predominantly Norway maple, which accounted for about 27% of the inventory of street trees. Little leaf linden accounted for about 12%, and green ash for about 10%. So all of those species either meet or exceed that 10% sort of guideline for a healthy urban forest. And together, those three species make up a solid 50% of the inventory of street trees. When you look up, sort of zoom out just a little bit to genus, maples comprise about 50% of the inventory of street trees. So at both species and genus level, you've got some things that would be considered overabundant according to the 10-20 rule. I believe on the next page, we look at the species and genus breakdown in parks. Possibly 2 pages ahead. So among parks, we again see that there's a couple of species that exceed that 10% rule, including eastern white pine, which comprised 26% of the park trees, northern white cedar, which comprised 17%, and northern red oak, which comprised 13%. And again, when we zoom back a little bit, look just at genus, pines, there's an overabundance of pine with 27% of the inventory of park trees belonging to that genus. And then one more graph, which is on page 9. So as I was mentioning, knowing sort of what you have in terms of species and genera composition can have implications for which invasive pests and diseases you should be most concerned about, most interested in monitoring for. And a number of the different invasive insects and diseases that are either found currently in New York or which are a particular concern in New York are listed here on the y-axis of this chart. The x-axis here, the bars, represent the percent of inventory trees that are susceptible to those pests and diseases. And it's important to note here that this does not mean that these pests or diseases are currently present in Glens Falls, nor does it mean that they will be at any point in the future. It just means that if they were to arrive in Glens Falls, they would potentially be able to affect a certain percentage of the inventory tree population. And here we're looking at both parks and street trees together because, insects and diseases don't really honor right-of-way boundaries. So the two pests that have the greatest potential to impact trees in Glens Falls are spotted lanternfly and Asian longhorn beetle, which both could potentially affect up to 56% of the inventory trees. Again, this doesn't mean that they're currently present, just that if they were to arrive here, they could have a significant impact on the trees. And you're seeing such high numbers there, such high percentages, in part because of the overabundance of maples. Both of these insect pests do host on maple trees, particularly Asian longhorn beetle prefers them. And these two species are generalists, so they can affect a really wide range of hosts. I think it's also important here to note emerald ash borer, which is the fourth most potentially concerning pest, with the ability to affect 9% of the inventory trees. And emerald ash borer, or EAB, only hosts on ash trees. And I believe, help me out here, Lori, white fringe tree, which there's one fringe tree in town. It is just outside. But because ash trees form such a large component, particularly of the street trees in Glens Falls, this is something that it may be beneficial to have a response plan in place in the event that it is confirmed to be present in Glens Falls. As of 2020, EAB has been confirmed present in Warren County, so it is in the vicinity and has the potential to impact and decimate a good percentage of the canopy here. Moving on to slightly happier things. The next chart is on page 13, condition ratings. Okay, Lori confirms, page 13. So another thing we were looking at for every tree during the inventory was its overall condition, which was rated from excellent, meaning pristine, nothing wrong with it, down to very good, again, really, really nice tree, just a few minor defects. Good, again, that's a good tree. Fair, these are trees which may have a defect, but one that can be mitigated either with time or with management interventions. Poor, these are trees which have a defect that will not improve with time or with management intervention. Critical, these are trees that are in serious decline and really don't have much of a chance of being brought back. And finally, dead. Self-explanatory, there is no life. The excellent news is that the trees in Glens Falls were, in general, in fair condition. About 55% of the inventory trees fell into that category. A further 33% were rated in good or better condition, and only 11% were rated in poor or dead condition across all the trees inventoried. So this is very promising. This means that the vast majority of trees in the town can be, they're currently in relatively good shape and can be maintained in relatively good shape with continued monitoring and interventions when necessary. And that actually wraps it up for me for the sort of inventory findings portion of this presentation. There's quite a bit more to it, both just in terms of detail and in terms of the things we look at in that management report that many of you are holding. So if you're curious, definitely feel free to dig deeper in there. But I wanted to talk a little bit about risk assessment because this is a very important component of the inventory. So essentially, trees provide benefits, but they also have associated risks. This is something we're all aware of. I'm sure most people know somebody who's had perhaps property damage or even somebody who's been injured as a tree branch or even an entire tree fell. So what we want to do during these inventories is identify the level of risk associated with each tree and sort of categorize it in a way that allows the DPW or whoever's managing the urban forest to prioritize removing or pruning or otherwise working with trees that have a higher risk of failure and property damage or injury first, and then sort of working their way down to things that can probably be left for longer before they become a really major hazard. Appendix D is where you can find the matrices that I'll be talking about in a moment. Thank you so much, Lori. Ultimately, it is up to the city foresters and those who are working on the ground with the urban forest to determine what an acceptable level of risk is. Every tree that is left standing will have some risk associated with it. And the overall goal of having this risk assessment done is you want to maintain trees in a way that reduces risk in the short term. So this might mean removing trees that present significant risk or pruning them to remove the defects that are causing that elevated risk level. And it also should help to maintain or manage trees in the future so as to overall minimize the risk that they pose. This is going to be proactive things like monitoring and pruning of defects before they become significant hazards. So in order to assign a risk rating to each tree, we use the International Society of Arboriculture's risk assessment system. And we basically ask 3 questions, which are then fed into a couple of matrices. And the first question that we ask is, how likely is the tree or tree part to fail within a given time frame, typically 1 year, which is what it was for Glens. And that can be rated as imminent, meaning that that is going to fail under normal weather conditions at any time. Probable, meaning likely to fail within the next year again under normal weather conditions. Possible, meaning it may fail, it may not. Or improbable, meaning there's still a possibility. There's always a possibility of tree failure, but it's quite unlikely. The second question we then ask is, if that tree or tree part were to fail, how likely is it that it would strike a target? So we start out having to identify what our target is. It could be homes or businesses, vehicles either driving on the road or parked somewhere, or people walking in the park, walking on the sidewalk, or even within cars or homes. And that likelihood of impacting target is rated from very low, through low, medium, and high. So those 2 sort of answers are fed into one matrix, which gives you the combined likelihood of failure and the likelihood of target impact, which is rated from unlikely, somewhat likely, likely, and very likely. And I apologize, this is where visuals are quite helpful. But that result is fed into your second matrix. And you ask the third question. If this tree fails and strikes the target, what are the consequences of that failure? So these can range from negligible consequences, meaning, you may not even notice that there have tree failures happened. Some very small twigs perhaps fall on a car or a person, and there's really no effect. It can be minor. Perhaps the car has a few scratches, maybe somebody has got a small bruise. Up through significant. Now we're talking damage that has what we consider significant monetary value, potentially injuries that require medical attention. And finally, severe. This is when we're talking about a completely totaled vehicle, a home with significant amount of damage, or somebody having to be hospitalized or possibly even dying as a result of tree failure. And when you add that final question in, you get a risk rating from low through moderate to high to extreme. And you'll notice that these are not quantitative categories, they're qualitative. So there's always some level of uncertainty, but this is sort of a system for prioritizing what order you should be maintaining things in. So trees with high or extreme risk ratings should be tended to as soon as possible. Things with moderate risk ratings should be tended to after high and extreme risk trees are dealt with. And trees with a low risk rating, and you'll notice that low is the lowest it goes, can be left for a little bit longer. They may be part of a routine pruning cycle or tree removals that don't have much potential for target impact or damage. I think I will skip the part where I did an example because that is definitely a visual point. And we'll move right along instead to talk about something much more positive, which are the benefits provided by public trees. So, trees come with associated risks, but most of us can also acknowledge that there are significant benefits provided by trees within urban settings. Among those, decreasing heating and cooling costs, so by providing shade in the summer, acting as windbreaks in the winter. Tree root systems help to stabilize soils, prevent erosion, and they also absorb water, which helps to mitigate and decrease the amount of stormwater runoff experienced in major rain events. Trees help reduce air pollution by collecting airborne pollutants on their leaves, which are then washed off during rainstorms. And their aesthetic qualities are known to increase property values. And even potentially increase the perceived worth of commodities as well. There have been a number of studies that show trees have positive effects on humans' moods, including reducing stress, reducing incidents of aggressive driving, and improving recovery rates after hospitalizations. And these are just a few of the examples of some of the benefits trees can provide. So in order to get sort of a more concrete idea of some of the benefits provided by Glens Falls trees, we run the data through the iTree Eco model, which estimates the quantities and expected value of 3 annual benefits provided by trees, which include carbon sequestration, this is the amount of carbon that trees take in over a year. Avoided runoff, this is the amount of water that trees manage to absorb or divert from heading down storm drains or into rivers. And pollution removal, so this is again air pollution removal, trees collect pollutants on their leaves. So the iTree Eco model estimated that just the inventory trees are able to sequester over 80,000 pounds of carbon annually. And that benefit, based on the current price of carbon, is estimated to be a little bit over $6,800 annually. Over 1 million gallons of water are absorbed or runoff is avoided annually by Glens Falls inventory trees. That service is valued at over $9,000 annually. And the inventory trees are able to remove almost 2,800 pounds of airborne pollutants from the air every year, mostly particulate matter. And that is the largest benefit provided every year, valued at $12,272 annually. So altogether, just the trees we inventory, those, I think it's something like 5,500 trees that were inventoried, they provide benefits, just these 3 benefits, again, totaling $28,000 annually. And again, caveats to keep in mind, we did inventory every tree in the city, trees on private property and those in unmaintained areas of parks were not included. So the actual benefits provided to the city by its trees are probably much greater than we're able to estimate here. And again, there's many more benefits that the iTree Eco model, mostly because of limitations in the modeling algorithms, isn't able to accurately provide numbers for. Just another little interesting note. Oh, and I apologize. This is a graphic within the management plan. Page 26. And that section deals in much more depth with the benefits provided by Glens Falls trees. So again, if this presentation interests you and you want to learn a little bit more, there's more to be learned in that management plan. But just to give an idea of sort of the overall value of these trees, the structural value of Glens Falls trees is estimated to be over $11 million. So that is an estimate of what the cost of removing all those trees and replacing them essentially with a tree of the same size and species would be. It's a theoretical number, but it gives an idea of sort of the inherent value of the urban forest. All right, we're nearing the end here. I'm going to talk very, very briefly about the resource management component of this management plan. That is section 3. However, the graphic I was going to share, I believe, is at the beginning of the report. The executive summary. Page B. So when we do the inventory, in addition to all these other fields we're collecting, we're also collecting the necessary maintenance for every tree, which could be tree removal if the tree is in really poor shape or is a hazard. It could be some sort of pruning, whether to remove dead wood, remove other defects, or just to raise the height of the canopy to allow passage of vehicles or pedestrians. It could be tree training. So younger trees require more structural training to ensure that they grow up healthy and strong and without significant defects that cause increased risk. Stump removals and plantings are also another couple of categories of potential maintenance. And looking at this chart, the green background is the estimated cost over a 7-year plan. So the idea is that we've got all these management tasks that we're recommending. The specified time frame for completing them that we were provided was 7 years. And we kind of spread those out over that 7-year time frame, making sure that anything with high risk is in the first year, some lower risk is addressed as the plan continues on. And so the first couple of years, the estimated necessary budget to complete these tasks is near $500,000, which obviously is a significant investment. That has to do with the necessity of removing or otherwise mitigating high and moderate risk trees in those years. And it decreases over time as that maintenance becomes less reactive and more proactive. As we get away from having to do emergency removals, emergency pruning, and more into just routine operations of checking to see if anything needs pruning and pruning as needed. So the annual cost is expected to dip down to around $200,000 by year 5 and remain in that range into the future. And there's a large budget table that breaks down sort of those predictions for the funding necessary, available on, where's it up? It's a big one. Several pages. Starting on page 49, and I believe continuing on to page 50. So if you're interested in seeing a more detailed breakdown of how we're getting those numbers and what those estimates are, those are provided in there. So in conclusion, a tree inventory provides you this database, this maintenance tool, this management tool to know what you have, know what maintenance it needs, and then go forward with a prioritized list of what needs to be done and when, as well as predict into the future what the management needs of that urban forest are going to be. Obviously, there's a significant expenditure of money involved in managing urban trees. However, the benefits provided to the community are massive and well worth the investment. Thank you all.
Thank you.
What is the database?
I'm sorry, one more time?
Where's the database?
What is the database for the college students? Who has it?
It is actually, I believe, available in a public form online. So, tree keeper, yes.
Well, like I have it on my computer,
Oh, you do?
and I go in and make phone calls, and I look at it. But it's available for everybody. So it's called tree keeper, but it's called tree keeper.
Yes.
I have a question about, as you said, this is a significant investment, right, to be able to do all the things you said. I know the DEC has funding sources for urban forestry plans, and we've done some of the steps already with becoming a tree city and having an Arbor Day event and the tree inventory and the management plan, but I know that there's funding available for planting and for tree maintenance. Is this something that you've worked with municipalities with, like, does that include these services to help us attain that funding?
Let me pull Lori up to answer that because she lives here. She does all this kind of stuff on a regular basis with me.
Sorry. So the answer to your question is yes. We can continue working with you and help you. There is a 25% match. So you would get $50,000 worth of maintenance work, and then you would have to put forth like $20,000
Okay.
of that. So they do help out immensely for that. From what I understand, talking with other agencies throughout the country, we're one of the few states who are doing that. Us and Michigan are only ones. So you can do planting and you can do maintenance, but you need the plan to get to that step.
Yeah, so this will probably help us significantly.
This will significantly, and being a tree city. So there's points for having the inventory, points for having the management plan, points for being a tree city. So you've really worked towards that goal of getting that funding.
Thank you.
So definitely.
Another question, you've got estimated costs per year that we should use, as a guideline. Does that cost labor only? Does that include supplies like trees?
It breaks it down where there is, like, for planting, what the cost would be to plant a tree. We also reached out and tried to get prices for the removals.
Right.
Larger sites have to go contractors, that's where Carrie helped out to give us that cost. So that cost is if you hire a contractor for larger trees. Smaller trees is what they average for the DPW to take down those trees.
Gotcha, so you use some of our current costs
Yes.
and just plugged in the numbers. So in a perfect world, you do this many trees this year, and you use those numbers. Okay, so
Right.
that's.
And this is looking at the inventory, keep that in mind. So if tomorrow you've got a catastrophic storm, microburst, windstorm.
Sure, that could all change.
It could all change.
Sure.
But yeah, based off the inventory today.
Right, but I guess I was looking at page 47 where it said be implemented, to implement the recommended maintenance schedule, but some of that money is what we're already paying
Correct.
for our maintenance crew to go out.
Yep,
It's not
so
new.
it's still in your budget,
Yeah.
some of it,
Right.
not all of it,
Gotcha. Okay. Thanks.
somewhere.
Yeah, there, well, and we've got grant potential.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I just have one quick question, sort of general question. We talk about planning, you know, for like, when you look at, I think you were talking earlier about sort of diversification that you're looking for. Are you looking for diversification that may be, like, incongruous with the region that you're in?
Exactly, so the
When you're
list,
looking for city design, you're not looking necessarily for the region. I mean, you're talking about having preponderance of eastern white pine or northern white cedar. Obviously, that's the regional, you know, those are both the regional trees. So are you looking for diversification that goes beyond what you sort of find in the region?
right, because the last thing you want is even, some new disease potential to come in. Let's look at needle calves and floating that's coming through and devastating a lot of spruce and pine trees we're starting to see. So even though that is a native common tree, if something new comes in invasive, we don't want to wipe all those out. We want you to have a buffer still.
And there's a certain level that you're not going to be able to change. So obviously, you're very right. There are certain trees that are native to the area, and particularly in the parks. The parks are mostly comprised of native species. They weren't planted. They're volunteers that have been maintained by the city over time. So changing the species composition within your parks is pretty improbable. And that's where monitoring for diseases and pests of particular concern would come in. The idea would be to ideally catch something like a needle calf disease early before it affects massive areas, and then take whatever management interventions are necessary to contain that problem to a small area and not allow it to become something that affects the entire city.
Great. Are there any other questions? Well, we really appreciate you folks coming tonight, and I know it was a Herculean effort that it took to get this job done, and we really appreciate it, but it gives us a great base, gives us a lot of information to try to figure out our path, and we really appreciate all that you did, and again, appreciate you coming tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, you bet.
Thank you.
Thank you, DPW people, for coming tonight. We appreciate it, and those are the guys that take care of the trees. So we'll be in touch with them also. Thank you. Okay. We'll move on to our regular agenda. And the first thing, is there anybody from the public that would like to address the council? Committee reports. Mr. Campanale.
No report.
Mr. Collins.
Let's see, it looks like we've got a lot of our city lights replaced in next week. I think they move into my ward, the second ward. So progress, city lights are being replaced.
There you go. Ms. Bonner.
I did have an email from StoreTech today that they are almost done preparing kind of their recommendations and also just giving us a picture of what they've been observing. So as soon as I get that, I'll schedule a committee meeting.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Clark?
We had a special projects committee meeting tonight. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend. I believe my colleague from the first ward was there. If you had anything you wanted to say, that would be great. We had a document prepared by Mr. Curtis to look at, and
I don't think it works.
I will move to my original seat. This is sad. So, we had a document prepared basically from all our meetings, changing the various sections of the local taxing law, and removing the fare structure, fee structure out of the city code. So that was put together by Mr. Curtis, and tonight was supposed to be our meeting to review that. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend, but if Mr. Campanale would
tonight, but the one question I had was the fares and the final printout of the fares, so the various companies could look at them, the council could look at them, and see exactly where we're at, what we want to do with the fares, whether we want to change them. The other thing is the taxi stands. Kara, a list of the stands that she compiled tonight. We added a couple additional ones. I think that would be very helpful. They seem to be all in agreement with the taxi stands. What else is this?
I think you covered it.
Minor tweaks.
Right, two of the taxi cab companies came tonight.
Question about the mileage.
Yeah.
They wanted to increase the mileage.
Well, I think, again, I apologize for not being there, but I think one of the things was trying to balance their concerns of, receiving additional revenue, which I think we helped accommodate with allowing them to advertise and allowing them some more opportunities to reduce their expenses, which in turn helps their bottom line. While also trying to remember our most vulnerable population, which is our seniors and our working poor that rely on our taxi cab services in this city and in the region. We have no control over what they charge them outside the city, but we do have control over what they're charged inside the city. And I think we need to make sure we have a good balance to accommodate those people that are in need of this service. So I'm hoping that, and again, I'm not set on these fees. This was a starting point, and I would hope and appreciate the taxi cab companies, thinking about their ridership and the people that need this service the most, that will struggle to, if we make recommendations to jack the fares up to the point that it's not affordable to them. So we just need to be cognizant of it. They need to be cognizant of it as well. So that's my feeling. And again, the fares that I threw out there were just a starting point. So any members of the council, when we put this out there to the public for public discussion, anyone that has the opportunity to say anything about that fare structure, we're here to listen. That's what's great about the public hearings and stuff like that. But that's where I'm coming from. I'm sorry I wasn't here to say that to them, but I will be the next time.
Well, we're planning another workshop for September 14th before the common council meeting, and then hopefully putting it on the agenda for the common council on September 28th.
And Jim, just so you know, I'm sorry I didn't make the meeting tonight either due to vacation, but I did speak to the mayor about possibly putting a small amount of money aside from our Recovery Act, so that if whatever fares we end up with, whatever rate hike comes out of this, that we could encourage some senior citizens or people in need that could reach out to us, and we could help them on an individual basis during the transition and maybe even ongoing. I know that we want to help the companies to succeed, and we need to protect our seniors and our financially strained.
Yeah, they're competing obviously at a disadvantage with rideshare companies, and so we need to obviously help them, but we also need to help our folks that rely on it. And if we can do that, it's subsidize that would be great. I'm not sure if we development funds would be utilized for that. I know we can have monies there for non-profits, and maybe we can funnel it through some of those things. But again, I want to focus. We've got a lot of different constituencies we've got the businesses, we've got the riders, and, you know, we need to make sure we come to some sort of equitable balance for those folks.
One thing with the senior citizens, that Queensbury Taxi has an app that they can subscribe to, they will get a discount on the rates. So we need to publicize that, we definitely need to get the word out about that. That's the first time I've heard about it. We started having these meetings, I didn't know knowledge of that, no one's ever mentioned it before. I know people take Queensbury Taxi, so we need to get the word out. It's a substantial discount, actually.
Anything else?
No,
Okay.
thank you.
So we'll go to our agenda. Is there anything under voice vote you'd like to pull for discussion? One is a resolution approving the minutes of July 27, 2021 meeting of Glens Falls County Council. Number two is a resolution approving the July 2021 monthly report of the City Court Parking Violations Bureau. Three is a resolution approving requests to use city streets and/or sidewalks as recommended by the Board of Public Safety and listed on the attached. Four is a resolution approving a request by Robert Brooks to hold a block party on Haskell Avenue between East Avenue and Peck Road on Saturday, August 21st, 2021, between 2 and 8 p.m. Five is a resolution approving a request by Green Oswald, 64 Sheridan Street, to hold a block party on Sheridan between Goodman and Austin on Saturday, September 4th, between 4 and 8 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Okay, under roll call vote, we've pulled number 6, so we'll start with number 7. Is there any of those up to 18 that would like to open further discussion? 7 is a resolution authorizing the repurchase of property located at 134 Maple Street by the former owner William E. Montgomery III. All outstanding taxes and legal fees have been paid in full. 8 is a resolution authorizing the repurchase of property located at 9 Pearl Street by the former owner William E. Montgomery III. All outstanding taxes and legal fees have been paid in full. 9 is a resolution authorizing a bid solicitation for a comprehensive use plan for Eastfield Recreation Complex. 10 is a resolution authorizing the controller to increase general fund revenue line A009999-2630 restitution by $360 and increase general fund expense line 823126-4479. Seized assets by the state by $360. 11 is a resolution accepting the lowest quote for removal of street trees on the current tree removal list as of this date from High Peaks Tree Removal Incorporated of Queensbury, $27,000. 12 is a resolution declaring a negative secret declaration determination of non-significance in relation to the Glens Falls Downtown Connector Project, pin number 1761.88, and directing the city engineer to complete the environmental assessment form and authorizing and directing the city clerk to file any necessary documents in accordance with the general regulations of the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. 13, a resolution approving encroachment permit as approved by Mayor Hall on August 2nd, 2021, subject to retroactive common council approval for City Code A 189-19B for Melissa Brennan, DBA Flight Wine Bar on Mark 11 South Street for a year-round awning system from current date through May 31st, 2022. 14 is a resolution approving an encroachment permit as approved by Mayor Hall on August 2nd, 2021, subject to retroactive common council approval for City Codes 189-19B for Melissa Brennan, DBA Flight Wine Bar on Market 11 South Street to bring a company providing a small panel to replace lines in the building storefront at that location on Thursday, August 5th, 2021. 15 is a resolution approving a mobile food unit license for Barry C. Watterson, 2872 Rolling Street, Schenectady, DBA to Henry Scott, LLC for a one-week license to vend at the Water Street Tavern on August 28, 2021. 16, a resolution approving an outside dining permit for Rockwell's, 132 Glen Bistro, 132 Glen Street, for placement of chairs and tables in front of 132 Glen Street from current date through May 31st, 2022. 17 is a resolution approving funding the position of the Administrative Secretary of the Glens Falls Economic Development Office and authorizing the controller to increase general fund expense line A56989-1000 Economic Development Personal Services by $14,000 $340, and decrease general fund expense line 56989-8000, economic development FICA by $1,097, and decrease general fund expense line 56989-4479, economic development other contractor services by $5,000, and decrease general fund expense line 56989-4487, economic development other professional services by $5,000, and decrease general fund expense line A119990-9000, contingency by $5,437, and 18 is a resolution approving the warrant.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Councilman Campbell?
Yes.
Councilman Collins?
Yes.
Councilwoman Palmer?
Yes.
Councilman Clark?
Yes.
Okay, motion approved. Old business, Mr. Campanella.
I have none.
Mr. Collins.
And none.
Ms. Palmer.
I just want to say thank you to you and all the volunteers for Super Recruit. My daughter had a great time, and it's a good experience for the whole community.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Clark.
I have none.
Okay. New business, Mr. Campanella.
Nothing tonight.
Mr. Collins.
I have none.
Ms. Palmer. Mr. Clark.
I do. I'd like to propose a resolution. I sent an email out earlier. The Board of Public Safety had a request of mine to consider erecting some stop signs in the 5th Ward, and they approved it, but it did not make because it was on Wednesday evening, it obviously didn't make the council agenda. So I'd like to put that forward before the council tonight to schedule to make a resolution to schedule a public hearing for that, if possible. So I'm not sure if it would be local law number 2, since we pulled local law number 2 tonight. So I'd like to have the council approve the scheduling of a public hearing on Tuesday, August 24th at 7:25 for local law 2, I think, to amend section 208-54, Schedule 7, to include a stop sign at the intersection of Faxton Street traveling south in the southwest corner at East State Street intersection. And the East State intersection. And when we take control of the new section of East State Street from the developer, we add a stop sign at East State Street traveling west on the northeast corner from Feeder Bend, and a stop sign traveling east on East State Street at Feeder Bend corner.
So you made a motion?
Yes.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote.
Councilman Campbell?
Yes.
Councilman Collins?
Yes.
Councilwoman Palmer?
Yes.
Councilman Clark?
Yes.
Okay, motion approved.
Thank you.
Is there anyone from the public that would like to address the common council? Here comes Sherry Corey.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Sherry Corey from the Glens Housing Authority, and I just came this evening to speak with the board. I'm sorry I haven't made it here prior to this, but recently we've had some concerns come to our agency, and I'm not sure. I guess I'll start a little background. 2019, we entered into a redevelopment agreement, so we
Should I
partnered.
speak into this one?
Oh, pardon.
You can grab it.
I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, I know it's not going to play, but this is good. This is good. A little bit closer. I'm sorry. So in 2019, we partnered with developers to redevelop the public housing program that we had in the city of Glens Falls and the village of Hudson Falls, and that is, there was 306 units altogether on 4 properties. So in doing so, in 2020, we saturated the rental markets by displacing 50 family members from the Rose Gardens. We have since demolished that, and now we're rebuilding that property, and it's very exciting because we have one building that's near completion, and we hope to have it rented by the end of this year. And then moving along at the same time is the renovations of our high-rises, the towers, as we're referring to them. Currently, we're in Cronin, and we have 16 vacancies. Over at Stitchman, we have 8 vacancies. We have a little bit of work going on over there, community rooms, laundry rooms. And then also in Hudson Falls, we're working on ground floor apartments, community space, and laundry rooms, with 8 vacancies over there. So the vacancies in our towers were not created by putting those people into rentals within the Warren County, within our jurisdiction, which is Warren County, the village of Hudson Falls, and the village of Whitehall. Those vacancies come through attrition, placement, or folks moving back with family. The concern is around the family units, where we put those displacements out in the community, which absorbed a lot of those affordable vacancies that we had going on. Recently, 425 Glens Street has been sold. I'm not sure who the new owner is yet, but I do know that there have been 90-day terminations of leases that have been generated, 5 of which are voucher holders, 7 of which are non-voucher holders. The Housing Authority has 26 voucher holders within that building. 20 of them are under the age of 62. A majority of that 20 are under the age of 43. 6 of them are over the age of 62. I fear that there are more coming, and the market is saturated. We also serve 871 community vouchers within the Warren County jurisdiction, the village of Hudson Falls and Whitehall, 50 of which are vouchers, which are our veterans. In addition to that, we have 43 poured-in vouchers, which come from Albany County, Essex County, Saratoga County. I have some from Puerto Rico. We have one from Florida, Vermont. So there's a bit of a variety. We also have 15 mainstream vouchers that are a result of COVID. And those target the disabled between the ages of 18 and 62. And those are 5-year mainstream vouchers that we have just put out into the community to help those struggling. So my concern is we're saturated. Our rental inventory is saturated, and I don't know where all these folks are going to go. They've come to us, including the 7 without vouchers. We are in the middle of a redevelopment. We are not going to lease up until the end of 2022. We are feverishly working to get this project completed. As I stated, we're working in 3 buildings, 3 towers, and that was unexpected. I'll give a guesstimate of 3 months ahead of schedule. We we're not filling vacancies, we're creating vacancies so we can relocate those folks within our buildings, keep them protected, and just get this job done. So, with that being said, I was just concerned, not wondering if the Common Council was receiving any complaints. I believe 425 is in Ward 3. I'm not sure if anybody can correct.
That's correct.
It is Ward 3. And so I don't know if you're receiving any phone calls, Dana.
Diana. I
Diana,
haven't
sorry.
received any from constituents, but I know Supervisor Bramer did receive one, and she just yesterday forwarded me an email chain about it, so she's been working.
So what happens to these individuals is they'll end up going to social services, which will create some kind of a budget for them in the relief of temporary assistance for needy families. But where do they go? Their rents are reasonable now. It's projected that an efficiency that's going for $775 to $850 will be raised to $950. The 1 bedrooms, I can't imagine where those are all going to go. They're all reasonably priced right now within our payment standards, and many of them, out of my 26, are below our payment standard. That's just a managerial issue. We negotiate with all our landlords. We've been able to keep them flush throughout this pandemic. After all, we're a revenue stream. or guaranteed revenue streams. So, and we have, steadfast with our voucher holders, making them accountable for their share of the rent to their landlords. After all, they were on fixed incomes. Not many of them lost employment. There are many, but not, a majority of them. Those who did lose employment, when you're on a Section 8 voucher, as your income goes down, your subsidy goes up. So you're never paying any more than 30% of your adjusted gross income. So those individuals were still subsidized, but at a higher level if they lost employment. Again, I just wanted to open the conversation and let y'all know that, our doors are open across the street. We're willing to work with whoever. We're trying to get the word out to as many far reaches of our counties and let them all know. We just opened our wait list. It's unfortunate because by regulation, I can't give an announcement prior to the opening. It has to be done through public notice, legal notices in our local publications. So I couldn't come to a Warren County board and say, okay, we're opening our wait list, or come to the county council and say, okay, we're opening our list. But, we work hard to get the word out, and we opened it for 2 weeks and got over 220 applicants. So we shut it down. And the reason why we shut it down so quickly is because we're a small housing authority, and what happens is the larger metropolitan areas get their applicants on our list. And when they come up through the wait list, they take our vouchers and port them out. So when you go from our small community to a larger metropolitan area, the payment standard is sometimes threefold. So it's a 3-for-1. For every one of our vouchers, they're pulling 3 out. So we work very hard to keep our wait list within, our Tri-County area. So we're only servicing those within our community. And so I didn't know if anybody had any questions.
Sherry, I have a question for you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So when you say we're maxed out as far as tenants and apartments, what catchment area are you looking at? Are you looking at just Warren County, or are you looking at Washington County?
So
or
our
Saratoga County?
Our jurisdiction is all of Warren County, northern Saratoga County from exit 17 into the city, the village of Hudson Falls, which is about Allen Street, Burgoyne Avenue to Dix, and the village of Whitehall, just the village, not the surrounding areas.
So you're saying that we've saturated those areas with people that are needing to find houses?
Right, just rental units are saturated. Nobody's moved during COVID. There are very few people who have moved during COVID. What the fear is when the moratorium is finally lifted, what is going to happen to all those individuals that most likely are going to lose their housing? Where are they going to go? Well, I know where they're going to go. They're going to come to us, which we are working in partnership with the White House, who has a dedicated staff to the ERAC program. Get your anybody you know or anybody who's inquiring, get them over there. Ben has given us some great information about, I guess there's 72 applications that are out there. The money is not rolling out fast enough. That's the problem. And that's a state problem. That's not our problem. That's the state. We're trying to alleviate the pressure on the landlords and allowing them to understand that through the ERAPS program, if you accept it, you are accepting not to evict, but not to evict, I don't want to misspeak, but they still have the avenue of eviction, but it's not based on the history. It's based on moving forward. So if a tenant gets the ERAP relief to a landlord and then continues not to pay the landlord, then they can still go through the court process and eviction. It just doesn't mean because you signed on and you got that relief that you have to to maintain the lease with this individual for, you know, for an extended period of time, or for extended lease period of time.
So the other question, you mentioned something about vacancies in the towers. Those vacancies you're talking about are the vacancies of apartments that are being renovated, or are they empty and you're just moving people from one floor to the next?
So they're all being renovated, each unit will get renovated, and all vacancies are being used to rotate.
All right, so
That's
there's
allowing us,
nothing in the towers?
not until the end of 2022.
Okay.
And what will happen is, when we get Cronin completed, there'll probably be 16 to 20 vacancies there. We're gonna draw Stitchman Towers over to Cronin, make permanent placement here, and then begin the work on Stitchman. When Stitchman is complete, we'll draw all those from Earl Towers, and then begin completion on that building. So our lease ups in 2022 will mainly be in Hudson Falls.
Can you work with any other housing authorities to try to alleviate? I mean, this was obviously, I don't think no one planned COVID, no one planned all this construction all at the same time. I mean, this is like the perfect storm that we're facing. No one's being evicted, everyone's staying in their apartments. I mean, so I'm just wondering if the housing authorities thought about getting special, talking to the feds about working with other housing authorities who might have better opportunities or different opportunities.
We're all in the same boat. We're all in the same boat. Saratoga County is looking to us. Those are our port-in vouchers, so that's what's occurring. Is people are want to port into our jurisdiction because we're close. It's the hospital, it's the Rite Aids, the grocery stores, the box stores, and the same thing with us. Our vouchers want to port out to Saratoga, to Essex, to Washington County. They have no inventory either. We're all in the same boat. It's all around us. It's countywide, or tri-countywide, I guess I should say.
So if somebody who's on your waiting list because of that construction, it's gonna be at least a year in 2022 before you can start to fill your vacancies. Because you need to.
Right,
you
right.
need to-
Well, in a sense, yes. I mean, in 2022, you know, we'll be able to serve a lot of the folks that are looking for affordable housing.
Right.
Our wait list for just the towers alone, for just our seniors alone, is over 300 right now, and that's active. We are very proactive about keeping our wait list current. It's just a matter of good business, and you know, again, once a year, we reach out to everybody on that list. We give them a choice to stay on the senior list or go to a voucher, a community voucher, and it's just a way to purge, you know, all that attrition or people who have been placed long-term or have gone with family or moved on, what have you. But,
If they are unable to find housing, do they lose their vouchers
if they are unable to find housing, so,
after a certain?
well, those who want to move, so we'll present a moving packet. They'll have 60 days to find something, and right now they're not finding anything, so they're staying in place. They're staying right where they are. Folks will not give up a voucher. A voucher is a high-priced commodity. It's good throughout the continental U.S., anywhere in the continental U.S., Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands. It's good. You can port it anywhere. If you can find a housing authority, you can port out. Question is, you know, do they have inventory? You know, do they have rentals as well? How many of our communities are going to go to Florida? We've had a few move on to Florida. We've had a few move back to Puerto Rico. Remember the big flood that occurred in Puerto Rico? We took in and we provided vouchers for that relief, and some of those folks are now going, you know, back to Puerto Rico, which has freed up a few units. But again, until we get La Rose Gardens fully up and viable, there's, you know, we in a sense created saturation. And again, and then not leasing up the towers, I just felt that I should come here and allow you to ask me questions, or just make sure I open up the conversation.
Do you have any recommendations for us or requests?
My request is any and every landlord you know, let them know we're a revenue stream. So we act as a liaison between the landlord and the tenants. Our landlords are just as important to us as our tenants are. We inspect units once a year. We'll do surprise inspections. We'll do, special request inspections. If somebody's having some difficulties, we go in, and we always hold that carrot and say, you either got to, maintain your lease, be a good tenant, pay your rent, or we pull the voucher. It's just that simple. We pull the subsidy, and we hold it pretty. I don't know, we toe the line, right, Ben? I mean, we really toe the line. We just had a $50,000 fraud case that we brought forward in Whitehall. Fraud is not unusual for us. We work very closely with Warren County and have brought many cases, had our voucher holders either way. It's the right thing to do. It's good for the community, it's good for the population.
Well, we appreciate you coming in. Jeffrey and I have met with you, and we'd like to meet with you again. Jeffrey's always kind of brainstorming on the housing situation that's going on in the area. And as you said, we kind of created a little bit of a problem here with the unavailability of apartments. So we'll continue to talk about it and see if there's any kind of ideas that we can come up with and reach out and do a little brainstorm.
And I kept the lines open with Darren Scott and Ruth Ann.
Yes, you had to.
And so, and he said he would begin to look,
Yep.
especially in Whitehall. It's a very blight area. They got hit with a bad flood a year and a half ago that just really wiped them out. And, they need that injection of funding to get some affordable housing, same as, northern Saratoga County. Our payment standards have gone up, and they'll go up October 1st, and we will bring them up to 110%. So we're given a budget authority, and we can spend X amount of dollars. So we have to divide that amongst all of our vouchers, how we're going to put that out there. But I'm going to stick my neck out and go 110%. And in hopes that we can inject our landlords with more money to keep their properties up. So what we don't want to happen is for them to stop investing in the units. I don't want these units to go in disrepair and not stay viable. So we'll thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
We're just across the street. You're more than welcome to come anytime. You're more than welcome to come and take a look at the building as it's rolling along. It's mayhem, but if you can just overcome the jackhammering. It's something good to see.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the council?
I'll just go quickly. After such a heavy subject, a lighter subject, Take a Bite again, our week number six. So things are going good. And Grandma's Table's coming up before the next meeting on August 22nd. It's going to be here in front of the Queensberry again. They're still constructing down by the park. But it should be better, bigger and better. I think that the restaurants are more involved, and so I think the courses are going to be better. Are you serving again this year?
Well, I haven't been asked yet, but I'm not refusing.
Okay, well, I'm asking, and I'll pass it along if you're willing.
Okay.
Anyone else willing to be a server, let us know.
Jim Clark,
Grandma's Table.
When is it?
Sunday, August 22nd. Okay, well, I'll reach out to you all and see what we can do.
Do we still get aprons?
What?
Do we still get aprons?
Yes, you still get aprons. Aprons are the best part. All right, thank you.
Okay,
Thanks, Rob.
so seeing that there's no one else that would like to address the council, we'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.